Everybody, I'm Tasha for the Major Change Group, and I recently put a poll on my community tab asking you, have you ever done group travel? Now, this could be where it was like 6 to 12 or even more than that, where you're going to a specific location. It can be a cruise. Now, I've been on like 3 group travels. This would make 3. The first one that I did, we went on a cruise to the Bahamas and Half Moon Cay. Y'all, that was the first cruise that I went on, and it was amazing. It was probably like 60 of us. I've even done a group travel to Dubai, and that was in 2020. And it was probably like 40 of us, but it was really nice. It was a good one. And so I usually have really good experiences with group travel. And I will say this wasn't necessarily a bad experience, maybe, but it didn't turn out how I thought it was. And so we're going to get into it. But let me know in the comments, have you done a group travel and what was your experience? So really, this is going to go back to April when a friend of mine emailed me about going on this trip. So when I got the email, I took a look at it, but I was just like, I don't see where we were going. So I didn't really pay any attention. And then she ended up calling me like the next week and was just like, Tasha, did you book the trip? And I'm like, no, did you pay for it? And she was like, yeah, I already paid for it. So then when I went on there, they didn't have any more spots. So I had to go on a wait list. And she was just like, well, it's going to be a trip to an undisclosed location. So it's like a mystery location, but it's going to be fun. It's going to be up to like 10 of us to where we're going to be going on this trip. They're going to book the flights and the lodging accommodations. And so I was like, cool, you know what? I'm going to try this. I think it's going to be fun. I love to travel. I'm a very adventurous person. So I was just like, this is going to be good, especially since I had been on group travel before and it's been good. So I wasn't even thinking anything. So I went on the site and I got on the wait list. And then maybe 2 days later, they got me a spot. And so I went ahead and paid. So it was $1,100 for the trip. So this was only going to be our lodging and our airplane ticket. So I was like, cool, I think that this is going to be good. So when I went on the site, they had all these cool different spots that they had went to. They've been to Portugal. This year they had been to Ireland, and it was only $777 when they had went to Ireland. So I'm like, okay, I know we're going to be going somewhere cool. This is going to be good. They done been to Colombia. They done been to so many different places. So I'm just like, you know what? This is going to be good. And you have to have your passport because it's going to be international travel. So I'm like, this is going to be cool. This is right up my alley. So let me share my screen with you guys. It's Never in 100 Summers. So every trip has its own name because they do about 5 of these trips a year, and it could be various price points. So you can have some that's like $777, $1,100, $3,000. It could be different prices. So this one was $1,100. And so it's going to be July the 19th through the 26th. Now, the only thing is we did not know where the location was going to be, but they did put us in this group meet chat, and they let us know that we were going to be leaving out of New York on the 19th, and we were going to be flying out at 5:55 a.m. And then we were going to be coming back on the 26th at maybe like 6:30 p.m. So this trip was going to be 8 days, but it really turned into 10 days because I was going to be flying in a day early and staying a day later so that I wouldn't miss my flights. So I had to pay for my flight going and from Nashville to New York, and then I had to pay for a hotel as well. But I was still super excited because I'm like, this is going to be so cool. So on the one hand, I'm really thinking that we're going to go somewhere cool. And it's so funny because when I told my dad about this, now he really wasn't, he didn't really like the fact that it was going to be an unknown location. Like, why wouldn't they tell you where you're going to be going? But I was just like, Pops, this is going to be so cool, right? And I knew a person. So my friend told me, but then a friend that she knew told her. So I knew one person and then she knew 2 people. So in total, 6 of us went on the trip, and then we had our, trip facilitator, and then they ended up having a photographer come on the trip. So it's a total of 8 of us. So I was so excited thinking about within the 2 months, where will we be going? So at first, I'm just like, well, for $1,100, where could we really be going? So at first, I was thinking maybe we was going to Jamaica. What if we was going to Costa Rica? Because see, the thing is, we're flying out of New York. So I'm just like, if we flying out of New York, we really got to be going somewhere cool. So our luggage could only be a carry-on, and it had to be 22 pounds, including if we took a backpack. So I'm just like, this trip is going to be 8 days, but really it's going to be 10. Like, what kind of clothes am I going to be taking? Like, on the one hand, we're going to be naked the whole trip because we can't really take a whole lot of stuff, right? It's just going to be really like swimsuits and all that kind of stuff. Because they actually had this rule saying if you had over 22 pounds, that you would not be able to go on a trip. So I'm just like, dang, they being, pretty strict on this. So, we waiting all this time to go on a trip. So fast forward to maybe like a week before we're going on a trip. And this is where it really started kind of getting good. So a week before the trip, the main person had put some rules in our group meet chat stating, we want to be positive. If anybody gets negative, just leave them alone and all that kind of stuff. But this one was, once we get to our lodging accommodations, don't be trying to go to no 5-star hotel down the street. We need to just be open and all that kind of stuff. And I'm just like, well, why would you have to say that? And I'm just like, unless people had been complaining about the lodging before, then you wouldn't have to say this. So I was just like, oh man. So I was already just like, okay, well, with the flight, and then we probably wouldn't be in a hotel. So I'm just like, oh man, we're going to be in a Airbnb. And I haven't ever stayed in an Airbnb, and I'm not really a fan of an Airbnb. I'm more so of a hotel person. But I'm just like, you know what? I'm going to be open. This is going to be good. So even with that being said, I was just like, it's going to be okay. We're going to see. So here it was. Pretty much I'm going to be leaving to New York on a Tuesday. And it was like the Monday, I still had not known where we were going to go. And so finally I had to put in there, like, where we're going to go. So I could tell, like my family, and then even like some of the other people, like your significant other and things, where you're going to be going. And I'm just like, man, this is crazy. So y'all, they gonna say we going to Cancun. And I'm just like, I could not even believe this. Like, really? We're gonna be going to Cancun? Like, they waited all this time to tell us that we're gonna be going to Cancun. And I'm just like, all the places that they had been, and then we going to Cancun. Now, I'm not necessarily trying to say, but it's just like, on the one hand, they had went to Ireland, they had went to Colombia, they done been to Portugal, they done been all these places. And see, they had went to Ireland for $777, and this trip was $1,100. So I'm just like, anybody can go to Cancun. Like, so I was kind of disappointed, y'all. I was just so disappointed. I'm just like, oh man, this kind of sucks. But I'm just like, you know what? So I had called my friend, and even she was just like, man, I'm not really feeling this. And then a friend of hers, the friend that was going, she was just like, really? We only going to Cancun? And then she knew somebody that was going on the trip, and she was just like, she had just got back from Cancun like 2 days before. So I'm just like, okay. So I'm just like, well, and the thing is, when I told my mom was just like, man, just don't even go on a trip. You know what I'm saying? Because it's just like, here it's $1,100, but just don't even go. You don't have to go. And I'm just like, so I had thought about it, but I'm just like, here it is. I done took 10 days off from work. What am I going to do? So I said, you know what? I'm still going to go. And I feel like we can have a good time. Now, I've been to Cozumel before, but I had never been to Cancun. So then we get to New York. So I fly from Nashville to New York. And y'all, I had pretty much been up 24 hours, getting ready for the trip and all that kind of stuff. So when we got to New York, my friend, she had a cousin that lived there. So pretty much that day we went to eat and all that kind of stuff. We got to the hotel, and then we ended up doing like some bar hopping. So pretty much for the whole night, we was just out going to the different places and we had a great time. It was really cool. New York was really good, but I love New York. So in our group chat, it's already coming up that two of the girls was having issues where their flight had got canceled, and I think one girl was coming in on a train and her train got canceled. So it went from six of us flying out of New York to only me and my friends. So two of us flying out of New York to Cancun, and we're flying American. So that was good because normally I'm going to be flying Southwest. Now the good thing is that we had our carry-on luggage, so we didn't have to go and get our luggage and all that kind of stuff, and so we were able just to go ahead and figure out how we were going to get to our lodging because they hadn't sent where we were gonna be staying. So now we're off the flight, we're in Cancun, it's hot, it's nice. I'm excited. Now, the only thing is, once we got off the airplane and you're coming out of the airport, the guards are there with their guns and all that kind of stuff. But I'm just like, okay, still pretty positive. Everything is still going good. But we had to take this shuttle from the airport to this other place where you can rent cars, where we're going to do, Ubers and things like that. So at this point, we still haven't gotten the address for the Airbnb, and we haven't determined how we're going to get transportation from the airport to the Airbnb. So it's just like I wasn't really happy about that once we had started getting into that, because usually when I travel, I'm pretty organized in what I'm going to do. So the facilitator at this point states, are you guys going to do a Uber or are you guys going to rent a car? And see, no discussion had even happened in regards to, are we going to do a rental? And I usually don't drive when I go out of town. I usually just do Uber. And really, most of the other girls didn't really want to drive. And so our facilitator, she said she would drive, but she didn't even have a credit card to rent the car. So it's just like, on the one hand, if we end up getting a rental, one of us was going to have to put it on our credit card, but then we weren't going to be driving. So then my friend, she ended up putting on her credit card, but then she ended up driving. So we was trying to figure that out for probably like 30 minutes or 45 minutes or something like that. So then we take the shuttle to the car rental place. And so it was going to be $65 a piece for us to book the rental for 8 days. So $65. So I'm just like, that's not bad. Now, the thing is, I felt like in the group before the trip even started, they should have discussed, how are we going to get from the airport to our lodging, and then how are we going to do our transportation throughout the trip, and that was never discussed. And I'm just like, so I felt like they had kind of dropped the ball. Now here's where it gets really good, because I'm just like, well, do you have the address to the Airbnb? So y'all, once she sent me the address to the Airbnb and I had went on the site, I'm just like, this is not going to be good. And so let me share my screen. So here we are on the site. So once I get on here and I see that it's 3 stars, I'm just like, oh my goodness, this is not going to be good. So the first thing that I'm going to do when I'm booking a hotel or whatever, I'm going to look at the pictures, and then I'm going to read the, what are the reviews saying. So when you come here, so it has a few pictures. So the thing is, they booked 3 of these little apartments. And so here's one. And so you can see, here it is in the kitchen. Here is a bed in the kitchen. So I'm just like, that's not good. And here is the gathering area. And it's nice. I will say this is nice. And here is another room. And here's the kitchen. And you can see there's a bed in the kitchen. So I don't know. Here's the outside. The outside was not bad, but it's just like, this looks okay. But I would say the neighborhood, to me, it wouldn't be a neighborhood that I really would feel safe in, like walking and stuff like that, because like when I go on trips and things, I like to walk the neighborhood so I can get my steps in. And we weren't even really close to the beach for the most part that I could remember, because we didn't even go to the beach. I mean, I wasn't there really long enough, but the neighborhood that we were in, it really just seemed like it was with the locals. So to me, I feel like when you go to Cancun, I really think that you should be on a resort. So the and really here you can see on all these pictures, they're really focusing on the outside. It's not even really a whole lot of pictures. So here is another room and it has the two beds in it. Yeah, they have the beach here, but the beach was not nearby. So that's most of the pictures. That's all of the pictures. So then the next thing that I was going to do, oh, here's another room. And you can see, so here is the two beds. And then here is the kitchen. So it has a microwave. And then it has a small refrigerator. And then here is the bathroom over here. And then here's the table. So yeah, that's what it looks like. Okay, so those are all the pictures. So the next thing that I want to do, started reading the reviews, because once I see that it's 3 stars, let me see what the reviews are saying. So here I'm noticing, okay, well, this review is only 2 years old. So here they're stating that we stayed here for 2 weeks and we had a good time. The internet access in the suite was good. Okay, so that was a pretty good one. They said the building apartment is very basic but clean. Neighborhood is safe. And so that's 4 years old. And so here, this is 1 year old. It says terrible budget, dark, stinky apartment. This one is 5 months. So it says, I read the Google reviews too late. Can only agree with the reviews here. Number 2 was a disaster, mold and rust due to lack of cooling. But if you leave the air on, there's a penalty. Towels, bed sheets were stained. Should you pay for the stains of court? Okay. There also was nowhere to put your things because we're either full or dust. Luckily, I used the accommodation alone and was able to use the second bed as storage. The floor felt like it hadn't been mopped in 2 weeks, and you dragged all the dirt onto the bed. The kitchen was rust and unsafe except for the fridge. On the last day, there was no water to take a shower in, but I've told that they implemented my tips. Now I'm reading this 3 months later where nothing has changed. I advise against this property. Yeah. And so I would say we had 3 different rooms. And so I think that this was number 5. And number 5 was the worst because I definitely agree. It had a very moldy smell. The floor was sticky. It had a humidifier in there. So the air condition was not on. And so that's probably why it had the moldy smell in there. It was like you could see in some of the pictures, it was a bedroom in the kitchen, and then it was 2 beds. The bathroom was not, the toilet was so dirty. It was like an old toilet. So it's just like when the toilet seat was down, and then when you lift the toilet seat up, y'all, this toilet looked like it had been through the ringer. Like, I'm just like, ew, like, why hadn't they changed the toilet seat? Because it's just like, on the one hand, you can see where possibly it could, maybe like 10 years ago it was maybe like a nice Airbnb, but like now it needed some work. They needed a lot of work in this Airbnb, and the bathroom was nasty. And I'm just like, see, when I travel with my own wash rag and towel. So I'm just like, ugh, this was just, it just wasn't good. Now it was one of the Airbnbs upstairs. It had 2 beds in it, And the air condition, well, the one guy, because it was one guy and then seven ladies, and so the one guy, because see, they had got there before us, so you already know that they picked the one nice room. But they said that the bed, because he was taking a nap, and he said that the bed was hard, but see, the air condition, so it was pretty comfortable in there. But like the other two, and especially the number five, it was moldy, and it just wasn't good at all. And so I'm just like, this is no way to, here it is, we're going on a trip. Like, why would you even book something like this? Like, pretty much, I feel like the facilitator should have got there a day ahead of time to see how was the accommodations. Because the floor was sticky, it was just nasty. And see, since I knew we was going to be traveling and we was more than likely gonna be staying in Airbnb, y'all, I had bought me this carbon monoxide alarm, because I'm just like, you know, they already cutting corners and stuff like that. So I'm just like, it's a big thing right now with people dying in some of those places for monoxide and stuff. So I had took me a monoxide um alarm that I had got off of Amazon. And so I'm just like, this is just awful. Um, Let me see some of these other ones. See, like this is 11 months ago. It said it is an excellent place, clean, cozy, but it has everything you need. Bathroom in good condition, hot water. But see, the only thing is, I don't know if it was 8 or 9 rooms. So it could have been the 3 rooms that we had wasn't good rooms. And one out of the three was an okay room. But see, the guy, he had already got that room. So then, since it was 8 of us, one person wasn't going to have a room. And then the one room downstairs, number five, that room was not really livable. Like, I would not have wanted to stay there because, yeah, here it is. This was 8 months ago. This place was dirty. The furniture was broken. The beds were poorly made. In general, the place was falling apart, and we only lasted there an hour because we didn't even have water. The truth is, it's a very bad experience, and we would never return. Let me see. Here's another one. Let me see. The mattress of the single bed is terrible. You will not rest. A lot of noise in apartment two is super small without ventilation. And see, that was probably what was causing the moldy smell. But see, that can make you sick. And see, this was number two, but I don't know. I think we had number four, five, and seven because we had one upstairs. It says terrible mattress, has a hole, does not rest. In the photos, it looks better. Without a doubt, there are options of the same price and better conditions. It's okay. So you can see that they were making comments, but that was 8 months ago. It says comfortable place, difficulties to obtaining hot water in the shower due to ignorance of systems. A jug of water would be missing from the condo. More water needed. Let me see. There's only one pot. So I don't know what they're really saying. It says the hotel is beautiful inside and out. There's no hot water. Don't even wait. The tap is open. Let's see. The neighborhood is loud. Yeah. But see, like this person, but this is 3 years ago, says excellent place, very clean. The terrace is very comfortable. Now, I will say the terrace was really nice. It was a really nice terrace. It says, do not stay. This is 1 year ago. Do not stay in this establishment. It is a scam. We had problems with our suitcases. They were going to charge us, let's see, 37. Let's see. Then they taken, so yeah, it was bad conditions and smells. So you can see here, very central, everything nearby, unique, but the weather does not cool. Let's see. So it's a mixture, but I would say to me, with it having 3 stars, most of the reviews were really not that good. And then, yeah, it was so weird because it had hours. It was a lot of restrictions because it had hours to use the terrace. I would not go back. Yeah, so that was crazy. So all of that was happening. And so maybe like 5 or 6 hours had went by, but within that time, we had went to get something to eat because we thought that our facilitator was messaging the main person because with the Airbnbs, you have so much time to let them know that you don't want to stay there and that the accommodations were not good so that they could give you a refund or possibly they could do something because since they had other Airbnbs, but see, I don't know if all of them was booked. And so we had went to get something to eat. So I would still say everybody was still in a pretty good, in a pretty good attitude. But the thing is, all these hours were going by and then it was starting to get dark. So it's just like, what's going on? What are they going to do? So the thing is, since we were waiting on that time, on the one hand, nobody had really decided that they were going to leave at that point. And so the other ladies were looking for other Airbnbs that possibly we could go to. But see, the thing is, you could see that the Airbnb was probably like 44 or maybe like $80 tops a night. And so it's probably only like $500 or $600 for the whole 8 days. So whatever we were refunded, that amount is what we had to get to go to another Airbnb. But see, the thing is, the Airbnbs that they were looking at were like $1,600 or $2,200. So it wasn't going to be enough for us to be able to get a better Airbnb with a house. It had the rooms, even had a swimming pool, and it was like a nicer Airbnb. And so at that time, I was just like, well, I don't mind paying the extra $300 or whatever to get the Airbnb. But see, the thing was, 4 of the girls, since their flight was canceled, they had to end up booking their own flight from wherever they live, which I think they were living in Florida, to Cancun. So they already had to pay $300. So we already had to pay $1,100 for the trip. And then they had to pay an additional $400 for the flight. And then if we were going to have to pay another $300, they was just like, they didn't want to do that. So then it was just like, okay, what's going to be going on? They were still trying to figure out, are they going to book another Airbnb? Then they were saying we were going to get a hostel. And I'm just like, oh man, I haven't ever stayed in no hostel before. So I'm just like, I don't know about staying in no hostel. Is your things going to be locked up? How is it going to work? So then 4 people said, we're going to leave. We're just going to go ahead and leave. So then we had got a hotel. It was a Marriott. So it was nice. So I feel like if they had got a hotel, and I believe the hotel was probably, well, see, that was the only thing. So it was one room with 2 beds, and that was like 160 something a night. So you would have had to have a lot of room. So it wouldn't have been enough money for that. Because I know that the people still wanted to make a profit off of it. So I don't know. But long story short, ended up what happening, 4 of us left, and then 4 people stayed. So 2 of the travelers, and then the one facilitator, and then the photographer. So they stayed, and they ended up booking a hostel, but that hostel was so nasty that they could not brush their teeth or take a shower or anything. So they ended up going to 2 more hostels before they had got a good hostel. But then they had kicked us out of the group meet, so we couldn't see any more of the group chats and all that kind of stuff. So I'm just like, dang, but today would have been the day that really the 26th was when we would have been getting back from Cancun, but today would have been a day that I came back from New York. And so I haven't talked to anybody, but I'm going to call my friend and see, have she heard anything? But as of right now, they had kind of been posting a few things because I was still on the Instagram, but it really wasn't like a whole lot. So on the one hand, I really don't know how it went. And so I decided that I was going to go to Puerto Rico because y'all know I had been talking about going on a trip using all my points and my cash back. And I said that I wanted to go to Puerto Rico. So I was just like, okay, I'm going to go to Puerto Rico. But see, the thing is, I didn't have my laptop. So I was just like, and then it really wasn't planned. I went ahead and canceled my one flight from New York to Nashville. And then I got me a flight from just a, one way from Cancun to Puerto Rico. But see, my friend, she didn't want to go to Puerto Rico because she lived in Miami. So she was just like, well, I really don't want to go to Puerto Rico. But I'm just like, well, I want to go to Puerto Rico because I didn't want to come back home. And I really didn't even think to go to Miami. So I went to Puerto Rico. So everything really ended up turning okay. And I will say it wasn't like a bad trip. So I feel like the trip could have been a good trip if our lodging accommodations were good, because like the group had a good vibe. Now, even though I will say I really wasn't a fan of Cancun, but it's just like on the one hand, once you put me on the beach and if my accommodation is good and you give me food, I'm gonna be okay. But it's like, two, I want to feel safe. And it's just like, I don't know that I would have felt so safe where we were at. And then I don't know how it was gonna be at the hostel that they went to. So I can't say. Also, when I think of the concept of the group, I'm not gonna say that it's a bad group because they said they've been in business for 8 years. They done been on all these trips, and it did seem like they had been on a lot of good trips and things like that. But I will say for me, because we had ended up sending an email to the main person, and they sent the email back, and they really wasn't trying to be accountable for anything. So that made me mad. And then I ended up asking to see if we were going to be able to get a refund, and then they was just like, well, you'll have to send an email and then discuss why you feel like. But it's just like, on the one hand, why should we have to discuss it anymore when we've already said, why we want to leave? And it's just like, now if I would have stayed and we would have had to end up going to 3 different places, then I would have really been mad, because I feel like when you're traveling, and then especially in Mexico, like that's not really safe. You see what I'm saying? And then you try to go so cheap on the accommodations, the lodging accommodations, to where this place is not really, to me, it's not safe, because if it has a mold and mildewy smell, that could make somebody sick. You see what I'm saying? So I'm just like, that really wasn't cool. But I don't know. You would have to let me know from the pictures that you seen. Would that be somewhere that you would want to say? So I'm not gonna say that it was like the worst place, but on the same hand, it still wasn't good. You see what I'm saying? So I would say not necessarily. I wouldn't say that it's a bad trip, but I think how I like to travel, I might not be a good candidate for this group, whereas I thought that I would be. So the main person ended up sending an email back saying that, felt horrible how everything went and hated that had to leave and all that kind of stuff. So then sent the email back saying that maybe in another trip where he is actually facilitating a trip, we could go on a trip and there'll be no cost. But I'm just like, on the one hand, the trust is gone. You see what I'm saying? Because you had this time for us to have a good trip. Now I'm having to go on a whole nother trip. And I feel like if you can say we can go on another trip, then you can refund me some of my money back. You see what I'm saying? Now, I'm not saying that he have to refund me the $300 for the flight, but then it was a whole $700 left over. I feel like we should be able to get some of that refunded. Maybe not all of it, and they haven't said, but really the whole trip, with the flight from Nashville to New York, and then the hotel, and then eating there, and then the Ubers and all that kind of stuff, that trip ended up being $1,600. And that's not even including the trip that I had to pay for to go to Puerto Rico. You see what I'm saying? So I'm just like, that's just not right. So I don't know if I'm going to get any amount of it refunded. He hasn't said, and I'm not going to go on another trip, because I feel like, for one, what if you go somewhere that I don't want to go? Because already you ain't picking good places anyway. And then in the email that they sent back, they were saying, well, they really like to stay in hostels. But I'm like, well, if you really like to stay in hostels, then why do we stay in an Airbnb? So I'm just like, I don't know. But let me know in the comments, what do you think? What would you have done? I'm just like, I don't know. But I'm just glad that everything really worked out. So while like that part of the trip wasn't good, and I didn't get to stay in Cancun. I did go to Puerto Rico and I had an amazing time. So turn your notification bell on because I'm going to be putting videos about my Puerto Rico part of the trip soon. So let me know in the comments, what do you think? And thank you so much for watching. It's not a game, it's a